Hey, I'm Scott Jones from eMeals, and you're listening to Real Food for Real Life. On this episode, I talked with Brandi, author of the best-selling cookbook, The Vegan 8. Brandi talks about how she and her family stepped into a vegan diet, and then how those meals prepared for her busy family led to the creation of The Vegan 8, her popular blog and best-selling cookbook that features recipes, delicious family-friendly recipes that are made with 8 ingredients or less. Now, before we get to the interview, I have a few housekeeping items. First, send us your questions and comments. We read all of them. And if you have a suggestion for a future guest or a potential topic, I'd love to know that too. You can find us on Twitter at eMeals using the hashtag AskEMeals. We also have an email address. It's community@emeals.com. If you don't already subscribe to our podcast, subscribe today. It's simple to do. You can find us at itunes.com/podcast/Real Food for Real Life. And while you're there, leave us a review. And finally, if you'd like more information on eMeals and our variety of meal plan food styles, you can find us at eMeals.com. Try any of our meal plans free for 2 weeks, be it paleo, clean eating, or gluten-free. You can even have your shopping list sent directly to Walmart pickup at no charge, so your groceries are waiting for you. That's it. On with the show. Hi there, Brandi. Welcome to Real Food for Real Life. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, really looking forward to this chat. We have seen here at eMeals over the last year just an explosion in interest in the vegan diet. So let's jump right into it. Tell us how you got to a vegan diet. I'm assuming that hasn't been a part of your life forever. Did you at some point kind of switch from a standard diet to a vegan diet?
Yes, I grew up eating meat and dairy just like most people, and we basically went vegan for my husband's health. He has suffered from gout, which is a very debilitating form of arthritis, which had him on crutches.
Goodness.
Yeah, not permanently on crutches, but on and off crutches a lot and on a lot of different medications. And it made our life really difficult, and it got increasingly worse each year of our marriage. So in 2012, that's when we finally decided to change our diet.
Right.
Because that's when I had my daughter, or we had our daughter in 2011, and that whole first year of her being a baby, a newborn, and me being a new mom, and him having gout so much, he was in bed a lot. And me trying to take care of him and take care of her, it became pretty much unbearable way of life for us. So that's when I started researching how to truly eliminate his gout, because I tried so many other different diets and removing different forms of other foods and trying different medications, and nothing would stick. So once we finally went plant-based, not just vegan, but where I started cooking everything homemade and not eating out and things like that, then his gout started to go away. And it not only went away, it stayed away.
Right.
And as long as we stayed vegan and I kept cooking things homemade, it basically changed our entire life. So that was in 2012, and here we are. Never looked back.
What did you find that was unique about a vegan diet that would help with his condition?
Well, basically, meat and dairy are very acidic to the body, and we ate a lot of meat and we ate a lot of dairy, and by removing those things that were causing such great inflammation in his body, that was a huge starting point.
Right.
But also over the years, I've had to learn certain, plants that he can't eat either, that are high purine foods that also can trigger gout, like cauliflower, mushrooms, and spinach and things like that. I've been able, throughout the years of being vegan, I've been able to pinpoint literally every single food that he cannot eat now. So as long as I avoid those and keep feeding him lots of potatoes and soups and rice and things like that, and he does fine.
Right. And so for those of our listeners who are not don't really go deep on, the tenets of a vegan diet. What are purine ingredients?
High purine, it's a chemical that is found, it's a compound that's found in certain foods that raise the uric acid level in the body.
Oh, got it.
So things like beans and lentils, he can have beans, but he cannot have lentils or things like alcohol or things with yeast and like cauliflower and mushrooms, high purine foods. It's just something that's in the certain type of plant that raises the uric acid level. And when the uric acid levels get so high in the body, then the kidneys cannot flush it out fast enough.
Right.
So it migrates to the joints and causes really bad inflammation and pain. Mm-hmm. So avoiding those foods keeps his uric acid levels low. Got
it. So going back to the early days of this, had you always been a fan of cooking? Had you felt comfortable in the kitchen, or were you both trying to become a more consistent home cook and try and help with battle your husband's health condition?
No, I've actually always loved to cook. I've been cooking since I was very young. My mom's a real big cook. So I started learning how to cook from cookbooks when I was a kid. So, but I was making, of course, normal or regular foods, with meat and dairy and things like that. So, but once we went vegan, I had to completely learn a whole new way of cooking. And we also removed oil out of our diet. So it was a whole new world that I had to learn. And at first, I thought, oh my God, we're never going to be able to eat ice cream again. We're never going to be able to eat cheese again. You have all those fears, but then you learn all these ways to make creamy things from nuts and, coconut and things like that. So it was just basically learning a new way of cooking, but right. I've always been a cook.
Yeah. And then that's one thing I did want to ask you about, and I'm glad you brought that up, is these oil-free recipes. I think that's a real unique aspect to your book. Is oil, even the plant-based oils, are they also high in acid? Is that why you chose not to have oil, or is there another important health driver there?
Yeah, I've learned through many plant-based doctors that oil is very inflammatory in the body, because basically oil is not a whole food. It's 100% liquid fat, and 1 tablespoon of oil is 14 grams of fat. And when you think about dressings that are loaded with oil, and you're cooking and sauteing vegetables in 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil, and then you have oil in the actual recipe, that's a lot of fat. And that's a lot of excess calories just from oil. Right. So removing it, oil, from what plant-based doctors have been able to show and teach, is that oil is inflammatory and clogs the arteries.
Right, sure.
So that was another thing that we removed that helped us as well.
Okay, so let me ask a follow-up question here, because now I can almost feel the questions from our listening audience come flying in after this airs. But I'm a trained chef. So I understand the importance that fats play in carrying flavor and facilitating the enjoyment of food and adding texture and things like that. And I also understand there are good fats and fats that are not so good for you. So in terms of someone who would be interested in cooking vegan, what are unique about the recipes that you've developed that still, because again, fat carries flavor. What are you using to have that same magic carpet of flavor in your recipes when they're not using an oil? Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I get a lot. When people say oil-free, they panic. But wait a minute, what about fats? You need healthy fats in your diet. And absolutely. And that's why I always tell people there's a huge difference between oil-free and fat-free. Got it.
Thank you for making that distinction.
Yeah, I do not avoid fats. And you can go on my blog, The Vegan 8, and see that I use nuts. I use cashews, and I use walnuts or sunflower seeds. And those are, of course, fat. But they are a whole food fat. They not only have, the fat, they also have the carbs and the protein and the fiber and all the nutrients that are in the nut or the seed. So they're and also they're usually half the amount of fat for example, like a tablespoon of almond butter is nearly half the amount of fat as a tablespoon of oil.
Right.
And then, of course, almond butter, you get the full nutritional profile of the nut. So instead of oils, I just simply use cashews to make creamy, rich, decadent sauces like Alfredo sauce. I mean, that one wins over non-vegans all the time. They can't believe there's not butter in it. So I definitely believe in using fat for flavor. So I have a lot of very rich recipes in my book that they're not fat-free. You can look at the nutritional stats, they're not fat-free. So I don't advocate a fat-free diet. I try to not go excess in the fats, of course, because too much fat is still bad. But I just choose to do it. I try to be as whole food as possible. I'm not perfect, but I try to do my best.
Of course, you're reasonable, and you're also a busy mom. I mean, I get it.
We do out, so.
Well, I appreciate you drawing that distinction. That's very helpful. Now, backing up a little bit, back to the vegan piece. Obviously, you put a lot of time into, this research to help your husband, and then that grew into a blog, which grew into this amazing cookbook that you have. But I'd love to hear from you, because I feel like the whole landscape, this whole digital landscape, is just littered, especially around health and wellness, just littered with all sorts of inaccurate, reporting and statements about this diet and that diet. And I'd just love to hear from you. What are some of your that you see as kind of the biggest myths out there around vegan that you feel like need to have some clarification brought to them?
The first thing I would say is protein. People immediately, I get asked on a weekly basis, I get new people coming to my blog or buy the book or something, or interested in the book. And the first thing that they're worried about is how they're going to get protein.
Right.
And that's the absolute biggest myth and the least amount of worry that anybody should have, because you don't typically ever hear about anybody being protein deficient, but you do hear of people being fiber deficient or nutrient deficient. And the thing is, there is protein in practically every single plant. There's protein in broccoli, there's protein in peas, there's protein in spinach, there's protein in beans, lentils. There's protein in every single food practically. So as long as you're not starving yourself and you're eating every day and you're eating, meals every day, you are not going to be protein deficient. My protein levels are perfect. And not only did, when I went vegan, I've been vegan, 6 years now.
Right.
It's my protein levels, not only did they not decrease, but I consume less protein because I ate so much chicken before and so much meat. And now, of course, my protein is based on beans or lentils or, all the vegetables. There's protein in avocados, potatoes. So that's the biggest myth that I immediately want people to not worry about. You're not going to be protein deficient. It's basically impossible unless you're starving yourself.
Right.
And probably another myth is that it's hard. And I would say it's new when you first start cooking vegan, because you're like, okay, I've never made a nut-based sauce before. You're used to using cream or milk or things like that. But, I always tell people to invest in, a good food processor, or, a lot of people have Vitamixes these days. But if you don't, then you can soak nuts. And then, soak cashews and drain them and then puree them with water. And that makes a really thick cream. Mm-hmm. And then I will use that in sauces or soups. And you cannot tell that it's not dairy based in the end product. Yeah,
I would agree with that. We as I mentioned, the folks that come to eMeals for our vegan meal plan are constantly saying how much they enjoy those really updated uses of things like those, quote unquote cream-based sauces without cream that are these pureed nuts. And I know that when we're testing these recipes here, they're just amazing. And it's not a cop-out, or, I'm not just, shilling for the vegan diet, but sometimes it's hard to tell that it's not really the real thing. And that's, and I think that's a great hallmark of any kind of diet that is might have some unique restrictions around it is you don't want to say, well, these are really good for vegan recipes. I mean, at the end of the day, it's either a good recipe or it's not a good recipe. So I agree with you. I think there's a lot of mystery and around, the foods being, super exotic or, not being family friendly. And I think, what you've been able to capture in the Vegan 8 is not only, family friendly, doable recipes, but my goodness, you've hit on what every busy mom or dad, that's cooking dinner for their family worries about, which is, I just need recipes that are simple and easy and 8 ingredients or less. Goodness gracious. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's always been my goal, because I don't want people to be intimidated, and I try to use simple ingredients. I'm not going to send you off to find a bunch of weird spices or, when people are first come to my blog, like if they're into baking, then I do use gluten-free flours a lot. So that's going to be maybe, an item they're not used to, because I don't use all-purpose flour very rarely. But as far as like my savory recipes, potatoes, beans, rice, everybody knows about those, and spices. So if you stock up on those basic items, then that's going to cover a lot of the recipes. So I try to keep it as simple and non-weird, non-vegan sounding as possible.
Yeah. And I know you've gotten some really terrific praise for this cookbook. And again, for those folks who haven't seen it, we'll have information in the show notes for how you can get to Brandi's, not only her website, but how you can get to the portal where you can actually order the cookbook. But what's maybe the biggest thing you learned, Brandi, while you were creating this cookbook and testing the recipes?
I would say for me personally, it was trying to find a balance in my life. When you're writing a book, it's more work than I ever thought it would be. And trying to write a book and be a mom and be a wife and have my own personal time or peace. I don't really know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but
yeah,
basically not go crazy. I mean, everybody who's written a book knows that it's a lot of work, but it's even more work than you even think it is. So for me, it was just trying to find a balance between all the different roles that I carry, but also keep my blog going and be there for my readers.
Sure.
My readers are extremely important to me. It's why I do what I do. So I would just say it's just trying to find a balance of everything. But then also, as far as pertaining to the book specifically, just trying to meet the needs of a lot of different people. I can't 100% meet everybody's needs, because one person's not going to be able to eat cashews because they're allergic. So I try to offer a variety of, recipes made with nuts, but then I also offer nut-free tips and things like that. So just trying to do my best to meet a variety of different needs, so it's as universal of a book as possible.
Well, I think when folks see the cover, it definitely doesn't look vegan, and I know that recipe is, but I mean, I think it really, if any one image can encapsulate the philosophy and the mission behind your book, that cover image of the quote unquote spaghetti and meatballs really sums it up.
Thank you so much. That was literally my goal. I told my publisher, I do not want a salad. I don't want chickpeas or fruit or vegetables on the front. I mean, I do use those things, but I didn't want it to look like a boring, bland plate of food. I want it to just look like something that anybody would want to eat. And I've had a lot of people say that their relative or friend say, but wait a minute, I thought vegans can't eat meat and there's meatballs on the cover. I'm like, exactly, that's the point.
Yeah.
It just looked like food. So
yeah,
I love people tell me that. I'm like, yes, that was my goal.
Well, that actually leads me to my next question, which is, you have this passionate audience around your blog, but there's no question that having a cookbook in the marketplace gives you another platform. And I'm just wondering, what kind of feedback have you received around the book thus far?
It's surpassed anything that I thought it would do. It's been unbelievable, to be honest. Basically the biggest thing I discovered is I didn't realize how many people knew about my blog until the book came out. I started getting so many emails and messages, and I get them practically daily now, just people telling me how my book has changed their life. how it's made them love cooking again. I had one lady tell me that she had been in a deep depression. A lady wrote me a couple weeks ago. She'd been in a deep depression for a few months for something personal that happened in her family, and that she had let go of caring about her health because of it. And she bought my book, and my book helped bring her out of that. And that was just, I mean, to me, it's recipes, but yet I try to be personal with people. So the fact that a book could help somebody that much, that's been the most amazing thing for me, because I just want it to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's honestly why I do it and continue to do it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool affirmation, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. I couldn't believe it. I showed it to my husband when I read the email. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
So, looking, kind of forward now, knowing, the time you've spent creating this blog and the book, for those moms who are thinking, or dads who are thinking about, starting, a vegan diet, but are really nervous about it, what are like maybe some of your top 2 or 3 tips that you might give them to help get them in the right direction and give them the confidence to stick with it?
I like to tell people to first stock up on basic pantry items. That way they'll always be prepared if they want to throw together a quick meal. I mean, all my recipes are really easy and quick, so they can start on my blog, or, there's a lot of wonderful websites out there as well. But stock up on pantry items, like go pick up your favorite spices. Make sure you have a lot of spices. Get rice and, canned beans if that makes it easier. You don't have to do anything that's going to take too long, but you can make things simple for you.
Right.
Get beans and lentils and potatoes and rice. Get basics. And if you have those basics and get a recipe that has just those simple ingredients, you're going to discover how easy it really is. You don't have to. That's another thing I didn't like before I started my blog. Recipes that were always 15 to 20 ingredients, and it would exhaust me or stress me out to think that I had to pull out that many ingredients. So that's another reason I want people to not be intimidated, because you're not going to have a crazy long list.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point too. Is keeping those, your pantry and your refrigerator and freezer stocked with good ingredients, because I do know that just, in talking to people about, being either vegan or vegetarian, there are also a lot of people who eat both those diets who are not really healthy, because they're eating a lot of really, bad packaged and processed foods that might be vegan, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily really good for you. And your point, and then you make it clear in your book, is really still about focusing on whole, fresh ingredients. So it's not only good for you overall, but you're able to stick to a vegan diet.
Yeah, exactly. And I do know several people that do rely on processed stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's vegan, because those things are usually really high in preservatives and sodium. And that's not something you want in your diet. That's not really going to help your health at all. So just because it's labeled vegan doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy, because there's a lot of vegan junk food out there.
Right.
So I keep a ton of frozen veggies in my freezer, and I just make quick soups or chilies and just throw everything in a pot. Real fast, real easy. Keep tomato sauce. Another thing I like to keep in my pantry is tomato sauce. So, you just get a good stock of things, and then it's going to be a lot easier when you have mealtime to not want to run, through the drive-thru or something.
Yeah. Yeah. All important stuff for our listeners to remember. And Brandi, I want to be sensitive to your time. I have one last question that I've been dying to ask you, and I thought I would just wait until the very end. You live in Texas, where everything's bigger in Texas, and they love their beef there. How have you tapped into the vegan community there, or how have you been able to come alongside? I'm sure you still have friends and family who love a big old steak and now and then. Like, how has that been received in Texas?
Yeah, it's not a vegan place, that's for sure. Well, none of my friends or family are vegan. However, they eat a lot more plant-based meals now because
Right.
of my blog. So, at the holidays, I cook everything vegan, and there's not one complaint. Everything's devoured. I try to just show people through food that they're not missing out, and I like to bake things for people. I like to have them taste test recipes, and little by little, when they try things and they think, wow, this tastes really good, I can't believe there's no dairy in it or whatever. That's my way of getting into people and showing them, and it just spreads. They tell their friends about it, and there's not a whole lot I can do to change the city of Houston, but
Yeah.
there are things there are a couple more restaurants that are popping up that are offering more vegan options. So it's slower than, like, say, California. It's much more vegan friendly in California. But Austin is actually in, Texas. And of course they have a lot of vegan places.
Yeah. They have some amazing restaurants there. Yeah. That are all vegetarian and vegan. Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing. But Houston, they're really slow. I really wish they'd hurried up.
Well, Brandi, you're getting to them, one recipe at a time, and that's a good thing. So hang in there. And thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you. And again, congratulations on the Vegan 8. It's just a terrific cookbook.
That's so kind. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Real Food for Real Life. Subscribe today and you'll never miss another episode. You'll also have access to past episodes with terrific guests ranging from cookbook authors to paleo experts, eating experts to fitness pros. You can find us at itunes.com/podcast/Real Food for Real Life. And when you subscribe, be sure to leave us a review. You can also find us on other popular podcast apps like Stitcher and Google Play Music. If you have questions about this episode or our podcast, feel free to email me at community@emeals.com, or you can tweet them to me at eMeals using the hashtag #AskEmeals. To get more information on eMeals and our variety of meal plans, visit us at eMeals.com. Until next time, I'm Scott Jones. Thanks for listening.